Everybody, happy Monday. Hopefully we're having a wonderful start to the week. I got a quick update for you on what to expect throughout the rest of this week, really. Yeah, so we're going to cover a pretty good chunk of ground right now. I know a lot of you right now are seeing a lot of smoke out there, so we're going to talk about that definitely. We're going to talk about the temperature swings this week. We're going to talk about some severe weather chances as well as just rain chances in general. Yeah, that'll be the main goal of this video. Luckily, it's not too crazy of a week ahead. We do have, some big time heat, but overall, it's going to be a pretty summer-like week for a lot of folks, so nothing too out of the ordinary. So we'll definitely talk a lot about that. With that said, though, I guess we can go ahead and jump right into it. I don't really have any other housekeeping things to talk about. So taking a look at satellite imagery here, you'll notice here in the east, all of this smoke still moving on through. And again, those are kind of these brownish colors that you see. And it has been very thick where I live here in upstate South Carolina. In fact, it's almost reduced visibility by a pretty good bit. And it's very ground level as well. So I know sometimes this smoke, whenever it moves on through, it's kind of further up into the troposphere. And you can see it up there, but you can't really, smell it, or it doesn't affect you. But this smoke is pretty close to the ground. So again, I'm sure a lot of you with breathing problems are really having a rough time right now. But the good news is that will improve over the next couple of days. And in fact, most of us are seeing the worst of it right now, and it should just begin to improve for a lot of folks as we go throughout the next 24 to 48 hours. So other than that, we do have some storms popping off here into the Great Plains. Again, that's pretty normal for what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, so nothing too out of the ordinary there. And same story out here into kind of the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys through Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio, those places that we talked about seeing some severe weather today. They are seeing some of those storms pop up as well. So speaking of that and taking a look at radar and our current watches and warnings, just looking at the zoomed out view here, I'm going to first talk about these watches and warnings, then we'll zoom into a couple places and look at radar imagery. So starting with this kind of gray color throughout much of the Midwest and the Northeast, this is air quality alerts. And again, this is for that smoke moving on through. So you folks in Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, and major populated areas in the South like Atlanta, Nashville, Knoxville, Greensboro, North Carolina, we're seeing some pretty unhealthy air. So again, if you have any breathing problems, really just try not to go outside if you can avoid it at all costs. And I promise you things will improve a little bit as we go through the next couple of days. Now, the other big story, of course, is the heat. And again, this big dome of heat still just flexing its muscles over the southwestern part of the United States as well as the south central plains. So I've got some viewers in Louisiana and Texas. I know you guys are really getting it really rough, and I'm sorry that this will not let up. But unfortunately, these patterns, when they lock into place, it just takes a lot to budge them. So again, definitely praying for you folks, and I know that this time of the year is not very fun for a lot of people, including myself. So hopefully we'll see some hope on the horizon, but unfortunately, the only hope I see on the horizon is for the people who've already cashed in on that hope a lot in the East once we get into this weekend. So those are the watches and warnings. Well, I should mention this other watch, and this is a severe thunderstorm watch here from southern Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma here, if I could remember what state I'm talking about. And again, this is for some of those stronger storms firing off this afternoon with some big hail, damaging winds, and can't rule out a brief tornado or two as well with some of these storms. So another area we're seeing the storms, like I talked about, is here through the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley, specifically here into southern Ohio and West Virginia right now, really seeing that rain right now. So like we talked about yesterday, those showers will continue to move on through, and also seeing some showers here along the southeastern coastline, really from the Florida Panhandle up through southeastern Georgia, the coastal plain of the Carolinas, and also even down into the Florida Peninsula, seeing a lot of those showers and storms. So taking a look at today's severe weather threat, again, we've got a pretty big slight risk here from really, again, those storms we're seeing in Oklahoma and Kansas all the way back up towards those storms that we're seeing in West Virginia and southern Ohio. Again, main threats today would be damaging winds, a little bit of hail, but can't rule out a brief tornado or two, specifically back towards Kansas and Oklahoma. Now, as we go into tomorrow, this area shrinks pretty significantly. And this will be more of just kind of another one of those northwest flow patterns where, again, we're going to have this low finally really starting to move out by the time we get into tomorrow with flow around it like this. And still having this big high pressure down here, having flow this way. Once again, that's going to allow kind of a corridor of storms to funnel in to this area over the next couple of days. So this will really start tomorrow, but could last through at least the next couple of days, probably at least through Friday. So taking a look at that and future radar, again today, expect some of those stronger storms to fire off in that slight risk area that we looked at. And of course, we talked about the hazards there. That should roll through the Ohio River Valley about the time the sun is going down, and then eventually through Kentucky and Tennessee into the overnight hours before those storms kind of fizzle out and get dried up or squeezed out a little bit by the Appalachian chain before we go into tomorrow and we get another round of storms to fire off. This time, we're going to have a couple different places. So we'll have the severe weather threat out here into the Great Plains like we talked about, but also don't be surprised to see some storms fire off here up into the Northeast. And although we don't have a severe weather threat from the Storm Prediction Center, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of these storms turn strong to severe tomorrow as well up into the Northeast as this upper level low finally kind of begins to swing on through and has one last hurrah tomorrow. Now, as we go into our Wednesday afternoon, this is whenever things get a bit more not so driven by that upper level low that has been causing problems recently, but more by this big dome of high pressure. So Wednesday afternoon, this high pressure again will really begin to flex its muscles and also shift off to the east a little bit. So with it, we're going to get kind of this conveyor belt on top of that of these rounds of storms, just like we talked about. And of course, those will work on through places like St. Louis, Nashville, maybe Frankfort, Kentucky, and even into potentially the Carolinas as we go into our Wednesday afternoon. And that should even continue into our Thursday and Friday before our next piece of energy moves on through, which you'll notice is up here into the Midwest on this map once we're getting into our late Wednesday and into Thursday. So taking a look at the current heights or the millibars out there again with the high and low pressure. We look at this map all the time. Right now, again, we're still dealing with this big upper level low, and this is what is causing all of that smoke here. But as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours, this will begin to shift off to the east and kind of move out of the United States and bringing with it the smoke clearing out as well. So that will definitely be good. But the unfortunate thing about that smoke clearing out as we go into our Wednesday and our Thursday specifically is it's going to come with a price of this big ridge flexing its muscles and bringing honestly dangerous heat for a lot of folks. So what people have been experiencing in Texas and Louisiana over the past couple of days will only spread further to the east into the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. A lot of folks going to get in on this very dangerous heat, and it's just really not going to be fun, to be quite frank with you. Now, some of us will avoid this, specifically up here into, again, the kind of Midwest and up into the Northeast. A lot of folks here aren't really going to feel the effects of this as much because we still have these pieces of low pressure or this energy moving on through, bringing with it cooler Canadian air, drier Canadian air, and also just some cloud cover as well. So and that is helping to keep you folks up into the northern tier of the country, specifically the northern and northeastern tier of the country, a bit cooler. Now, the good news is, again, you'll notice as we shift this into this weekend, that low pressure up from Canada really begins to kind of expand and sink southward. So once we get into this weekend, that heat will subside for a lot of folks in the east as this big area of blue takes over. Now, for you folks in Louisiana, Texas, the West Coast, unfortunately, you're still going to be dealing with this heat, and I hate to tell you that, and I know you don't want to hear it, but unfortunately, it's just kind of what the forecast is looking like right now. But us in the east will definitely kind of chill out a little bit with the very hot weather and cool down going into this weekend, and likely even get a bit stormier again as well. So speaking of that and taking a look at future radar, again, what I want you to notice is, first of all, after tomorrow, this big low pressure will finally scoot away, but behind it, this next piece of energy moves on down, and with that, we're also going to get waves of this precipitation to come down along the kind of ridge of that high pressure. So going into Thursday, Wednesday, again, you'll notice these pockets of storms popping up here, and they'll all kind of move down to the south and the east, much like we've seen for the past couple of weeks. So that could bring some rain chances specifically to the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley. Places east of the Appalachian chain be a little bit more difficult to get rain over the next 5 days, just because the mountains are going to really chew up a lot of that moisture, but can't rule out even afternoon storms for people east of the mountains here. So again, going into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, really, this low pressure, or this piece of energy that we just looked at, really dives down into the lower 48 east of the Mississippi here, and with it bringing more widespread showers, storms, and those cooler temperatures that I'm sure we are all looking forward to. And again, that should last at least through this weekend. Of course, like I said, bringing with it those cooler temperatures and potentially drier air, although for some folks it'll be a bit rainier as well. So taking a look at the temperatures again, the next couple of days are really just going to be brutal. This is Wednesday. Look at this big kind of dome of heat here over the southern tier of the country. But while that is working its way on through, still notice this area of blue trying to work its way back in. So not everyone is going to feel the effects of this big area of high pressure, but a lot of folks will. And again, the good news is once we go into this weekend, this big area of blue comes back in to kind of save the day for a lot of folks here. And we'll have, honestly, a pretty comfortable feeling weekend for July standards, especially Saturday and Sunday. Before going into early next week, we'll see what happens. But I think the pattern will moderate a bit and we'll get back to at least average. So taking a look at the rainfall prediction over the next 5 days, again, I think the area that's going to see the most rain is definitely going to be kind of the Ohio River Valley here. So specifically through kind of southern Illinois, southern Indiana, much of Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia are definitely going to see the most rain over the next 5 days. And again, this is just because of these areas of storms that are going to ride along this axis of high pressure. Now, the one good news with this is, obviously, the more rain you see, the less sunshine you're seeing, and therefore the cooler you will stay from this big dome of heat. But areas south of there, kind of into this belt here, it's really just going to be a pretty brutal, at least 3 or 4 days with very hot temperatures. The muggy air will also return before, again, going into this weekend, things moderate, especially east of the Mississippi, with more low pressure moving on through. So with that said, again, hopefully you found some use in the video. If you did, definitely comment and let me know. And of course, thank you for coming back and watching. And of course, if you're new here, definitely consider liking the video, sharing it with some friends, especially those of us being affected by some of this dangerous heat and smoke. And, definitely consider subscribing as well. With that said, I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I will see you all tomorrow.